So I've seen people use the Sahara Desert to describe people that live like here. They call them Sub-Saharan African.
Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Burrs or Belly Dirt channel. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload videos, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. So lovelies, I'm gonna be your today's host, and I have so many statistics to put up here, and we're gonna come out to talk about it. Alright lovelies, let's dive into today's video.
So I've seen people use the Sahara Desert to describe people that live like here. They call them Sub-Saharan African. And I'm not gonna lie, I hate that term, bro. Maybe it's just me, but why are you using the Sahara Desert to describe people that don't live in the Sahara? You get me? Why not call the people that live in the Sahara Desert the Saharan people? Because the majority don't live in the Sahara, and they are also the real Africans, bro. No mixes. They are not mixed with anything. They are 100% African. So why are you calling them Sub-Saharan African? They are not sub anything. I don't care about the Sahara. I don't care if they live below them. No. Stop calling them Sub-Saharan, bro. They've been consistently African throughout history, throughout colonization, wherever. They never asked to join the European Union. They never asked to join the Arab League. They've been 100% African throughout history. So why are you calling them sub? No, they are the Africans, bro. What are you on about? You get me? That term needs to die out right now. When I see another person calling them Sub-Saharan African, bro, man.
An indigenous North African creator made a really beautiful video about the Gnawa people of Morocco, who are a black population that makes this music that is synonymous with Moroccan culture, basically, despite being continuously marginalized. But they use this word Sub-Saharan African in their video, and many people are in the comments fighting because of it. I never use that word. I don't use it because I do acknowledge that it's also a colonial holdover. So if you want to talk about the parts of Africa that are not in yellow, because the parts in yellow are considered North Africa and everything else is quote unquote Sub-Saharan Africa. So you want to talk about those countries or those regions, you can these are the words you can say instead. You can simply call out the regions like East Africa, West Africa. Now people hail from Western Africa originally, and they were taken to Morocco, to the Kingdom of Morocco, during the Trans-Saharan slave trade. Don't call it Black Africa either, because that's a misnomer and it's a problem. The reason why Sub-Saharan Africa is a problematic word in general is because it glomps all of non-North Africa into this like black mass of like all the same. The reason why there's this word for the parts of Africa below the yellow parts, below North Africa, is that they quote unquote have the same culture, when the reality is that we really don't. There are communities in so-called Sub-Saharan Africa that have more in common with North African communities. There's also many differences between Black Africans. So for example, like there's no mutual intelligibility between like Bantu languages and the languages in Nigeria, for example. Like I could listen to Igbo, to Yoruba, and there's no mutual intelligibility whatsoever. There's languages in our own countries, they're not the same country, no mutual intelligibility whatsoever. Like we do not know what the other person is saying. We don't even have a clue. We couldn't even make up a meaning if we tried. We just don't know, because it's not the same language at all. It's not even the same language family. There are no shared cognates. There's nothing in common. And those nuances are what that word Sub-Saharan Africa erases, because it assumes that we're all just the same. We're all just like, there's North Africa, and then there's the black people below them. The blacks. The blacks below them. That's what it comes off as. And that's how people beef with that word. But yeah, just say East Africa, West Africa, whatever, or just name the countries. Cool.
Eduardo asks, why? Why is Sub-Saharan so genetically diverse, yet phenotypically so similar? Before I answer your question, I want to clarify, be careful with using the term Sub-Saharan. I'll go into exactly why later. To answer the first question, why is it so genetically diverse? Well, it's quite literally the motherland. Regardless of where you're from in the world and what you look like, all of us can eventually trace our roots back to Africa. It is where humankind developed, and so naturally it has the most diversity. There are better ways to explain it, like the founder effect and genetic drift, but I'm not a geneticist, so. Now to address the fact that they are phenotypically similar. Are they? The Dinka from South Sudan. With the exception of Todd, the Pygmy from Cameroon. Amhara from Ethiopia. Tutsi from Rwanda. Are they phenotypically similar? Like, honestly, like, if you throw away your ideas of race and color, are they really that similar? This leads to my last point. Be careful of using the term Sub-Saharan because it doesn't mean what you think it means. People separate Africa into Sub-Saharan, North Africa, usually because they want to homogenize it. As in, like, this is one group of people and then this is the Arabs, which is like, that's so not what the case is. I can name like 5 tribes this guy would fit into in East Africa, and he's my uncle. He's North African.
Jet, thank you for applying. Jet is a child, Jet is a novice, so I will not hold your lack of knowledge against you. Welcome to school. Okay, so we're going to take down each of these points one by one, starting with the Sub-Saharan and North African influences in Moorish history. Let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. Tariq ibn Ziyad, he led an army of 10,000 into the Iberian Peninsula, which led him to the conquering of Spain. Now, that army of 10,000 included soldiers from both the Sub-Saharan as well as North African, so some of those soldiers were absolutely visibly black, including Tariq himself. Visual descriptions from that time describe him as being dark-skinned with woolly hair, so do with that information as you will. Notice that you said the Berbers, the North Africans, weren't black per se. This just helps prove my point even further. You know, black people, we really do range from all colors, from no color at all to deep, beautiful ebonies. Like the diaspora today is nuanced with all shades of brown. That is a reflection of what the Moorish culture was like back in the day. Now, if you look for this information on the first page of Google, you are not going to find it, my love. Most of our history has been deliberately erased or reworded to undermine the contributions of Black brilliance in modern civilization. I'm obsessed with these topics since my first African American Studies class 10 years ago, so I've done the research, so you don't have to, but I encourage you to do it anyway. And you're right, we can't talk about the Moors without talking about religion, because the Moorish Empire presented an unprecedented time of religious tolerance. For the first time in European history, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism was all practiced together. They coexisted. These people didn't just tolerate one another, they worked together, they embraced one another, they learned from one another. And as I mentioned, Al-Andalus was a mecca of growth and progress, which is why Pope Sylvester, one of the most learned and scholarly popes of that time, studied under Moors in Cordoba in the Moorish Empire. And you can Google that. A time of progression, a time of religious tolerance. And if you want to talk about Moorish contributions, the only reason you even know who the Romans are, who Plato is because the Moors preserved the Roman and Greek texts. Oh, and they invented algebra? Yeah, invented by Black people. The compass, navigation, the same navigation that ships still use to explore the world today. That foundation came from the Moors. Oh, and architecture. They made architecture from just being a stable place that you can call home to actually something beautiful. The same way that we see architecture today, that was instilled by the Moors. And those are just a few of the Moorish contributions and inventions that we still utilize today. My brothers and sisters, this is important because if you don't know your history, then people will try to convince you that you do not belong in rooms that you in fact designed. Knowing your history gives you a deeper understanding of what you are capable of. So if you like content like this, like and subscribe for more.
When you just realize how anti-Black your history has been, it's amazing. How about the phrase Sub-Saharan Africa? As if Egypt isn't on Africa. You know what I mean? They saw this cool stuff Egypt was doing, like pyramids and hieroglyphs. Although, like, the first writings in the world, a lot of them are Egyptian. And they were like, well, that's not these people. This is Northern Africa. They're different. That's Sub-Saharan Africa down there. You know? Like, they just couldn't give Africa credit. They had to make it Sub-Saharan Africa. And the bitch of it is, like, a lot of the people that live in North Africa, like Morocco and Egypt, don't claim themselves as African. It's like, it's clearly in Africa. That's Africa.
Let's talk about something that seems small on the surface. Just a word, but is actually a loaded weapon of language. Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, I have seen this term tossed around in academia, in journalism, in casual YouTube videos, and even in so-called educational TikToks. But every time I hear it, it feels off. It feels like a label invested by someone outside of Africa to make sense of a continent they don't truly understand. And I want to unpack that today because wars are not neutral. Wars carry history, baggage, and often hidden politics. Sub-Saharan Africa didn't just appear by accident, it's a colonial construction. European cartography, missionaries, and colonial administrators used it as a way to divide Africa into two simplified zones. The civil north, often associated with Arabs, Islam, and Mediterranean trade, and the other, the Black Africa, the lands below the desert, is a geography weaponized into identity. Instead of seeing the continent in its complexity, they drew a desert as a divider, as if the Sahara was some internal war between people, when in reality, people have been crossing, trading, intermarrying, and moving across that desert for thousands of years. When you say Sub-Saharan Africa, what are you really saying? You are saying something. Everything below this imaginary line is one thing, a monolith, as though the Igbo in Nigeria, the Zulu in South Africa, the Dinka in South Sudan, and the Hamara in Ethiopia are the same people. As though Bantu-speaking nations share the same worldview as the Berbers of the desert fringe. The term collapses thousands of languages, thousands of ethnicities, hundreds of histories into one vacuum category that is not description, that is erasure. And the irony, Africa has more genetic diversity within its borders than the rest of the world. Combined, a random two Africans might be more genetically different from each other than either of them is to an European or an Asian. Yet the term Sub-Sahara pretends they are one type. Some people will argue, but they look at the same really. Look at the Decca of South Sudan, towering, long-limbed, jet black. Then look at the Tutsi of Rwanda, slim and shaped-featured. Then look at the San people of Southern Africa, short, light-skinned with completely different facial structures. Then the Fulani of West Africa, which features that many Europeans was called not African enough. How do you look at that diversity and say, yeah, there is one group, Sub-Sahara? This is the trick of colonial language. It convinces you similarity exists where it doesn't and a difference exists where it doesn't. Now let's address another piece of this puzzle, North Africa. When people say Africa, they often don't mean the whole continent, they mean Sub-Saharan Africa. North Africa gets carved out as its own cultural space. Why? Because of Arabization, Islam, Mediterranean contacts. But here is the truth. North Africa is Africa. The Amazing, the Nubsian, the Goan, or indigenous Africans, some carry Arab ancestry, some don't. But colonial categories created this first split. Even worse, this split reinforces racist heritage. It suggests North Africa is closer to Europe, more civilized. Sub-Sahara is the real Africa, the primitive one, and both are uncertain. North Africans get their Africanness questioned. Black Africans get homogenized into one undifferentiated block. Nobody wins except the colonizers who invested the division. Take Morocco's Guana people. They are a black community descended from enslaved West Africans who were brought north during the Trans-Sahara trade. Their music and their spirituality are now central to Moroccan identity, yet they are marginalized. And when people tell their story, they often get labeled Sub-Sahara, even though they have lived in Morocco for centuries, even though they are Moroccan. See the issue, language becomes quiet form of exclusion. When you keep repeating Sub-Saharan Africa, you reinforce a worldview. You consciously teach people that Africa is two continents, that real Africa is black and below the desert, that Arabs up north are separate, that Africans can be looped into categories instead of being understood as distinct nations and cultures. Even academically, it's lazy. Instead of saying East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, terms actually mean something. It says Sub-Sahara, which means nothing. Imagine calling all Europe Sub-Saharan. Imagine saying everything north of the Athens is Sub-Saharan. You did sound ridiculous, but for Africa, the world is comfortable with this nonsense. Now let's talk about that preface. Sub. It means under. It carries connotation of being beneath. Secondary, inferior, subhuman, subpar, subordinate. So when you call someone sub-Sahara, you are not just describing geography, you are placing them below something, below the desert, below the so-called real Africa of the pharaohs and pyramids, below history. It's not neutral, it's pejorative whether intended or not. So what should we say instead? If you are talking geography, say East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. Be specific. If you are talking genetic, then break it down by actual population, Yoruba, Bantu, Nikotic, San. If you are talking culture, name the people, Igbo, Hausa, Yozolo, Ufu, Amara. Worst exists. Africa is vast and rich, enough to be described properly. Don't fatten it with a lazy colonial leftover. Some people will argue, but everyone understands it. That is true, because colonialism taught everyone to understand it. Conveniency is not an excuse for distortion. The fact that people still use Sub-Sahara shows how deep colonial categories are embedded in global consciousness. Journalists want shortcuts. Academics want neat boxes, but reality is messy, and respecting people means respecting the messless. The fight here isn't just about a word, it's about how Africa is seen. It's about who gets to defy Africa for too long. Outsiders have written the dictionaries, the maps, the encyclopedias, and Africans have had to live inside those categories. Rejecting Sub-Sahara is about reclaiming self-definition. It's about saying we are Africans, full stop, diverse, complex, different, but not sub anything. So next time you hear someone saying Sub-Sahara Africa, pause, ask, why not just say the country? Why not just say the region? Why rely on a colonial crunch? Because words matters, and until we dismantle the language of division, we will never dismantle the mindset of division. There is no Sub-Sahara Africa. There is no only Africa, a continent older than any empire, richer than any label, and more diverse than any box you try to stuff it into.
And if you watched up to this extent, don't forget to please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We are just here for educational and informative purposes. So lovelies, why not just share your thought? Subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.